Good morning, everyone. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio out of the Agora Coffeehouse at the Fontana Shopping Center, Midtown, Tulsa. We wish that you would join us this morning. This is our maiden broadcast from the Agora Coffeehouse. Now, this is Tulsa's best kept secret, I think, but it's a great coffee house. It's I would characterize Agora Coffeehouse as eclectic, if anything else. And the coffee is terrific. They have exotic coffee such as Ethiopian. What else do we have this morning? Arabian coffee. Right. If you're in the neighborhood, stop over. In fact, for the next half hour, if you stop over and be my guest on the radio, I will pick up the tab for your coffee. How about that? You can't beat that with a stick. This morning, this is a maiden broadcast, so we're going to experiment with a lot of things, but we hope to touch on a couple of subjects of interest to you. And if you have any questions, we'd like for you to call 888-773-4496. Let me repeat, that's toll-free, 888-773-4496. Now, folks, as you know, this is Liberty Talk Radio. What do you think we talk about? We're not going to talk about forks and spoons. We're going to talk about liberty, our concept of liberty and what it means to you. It sounds very elementary, doesn't it? It is a very, very difficult concept to grasp. Most people, and when I say most people, I would say well over 90% of the population does not have a concept of what liberty means. Usually, liberty means you can do what you want, provided it's within the rules and regulations set forth by someone else, some other authority. And if the authority says it's okay for you to do, you have been liberalized and you may do what you want. Well, this program is going to dispel that disparity in your minds, and hopefully you'll be able to think. Now, folks, I have to, in the interest of full disclosure, I must admit that I am not from this planet Earth. Right? We still have a bumper song going, don't we? I am not from the planet Zorg, but before I do that, let me give you my formal introduction. I guess I'm doing everything backwards. You know, folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Now, folks, I tell you I'm not from the planet Earth. I got to explain that to you. Don't hang up yet. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to do anything. I don't have ray guns in my hand or anything like that. I just talk. I speak logically, think critically. Now, I'm from the planet Zorg. Now, for those of you who do not know the planet Zorg, it is a planet light years from the planet Earth. Everyone on that planet thinks critically and speaks logically. Everyone. In fact, if you are ever detected not doing so, they put you on a space module and they fly you off the planet, and guess what they do? They dump you on the planet Earth. You see, folks, if you were looking at it this way, planet Zorg is in fact the insane asylum for planet Earth. And I can prove that because of the way people think about themselves, about their liberty, and how they justify things. This program is about that. We are apolitical. We don't care about Republican, Democrat, Independent. We don't care. Now, if you want to categorize us, and you have to categorize because that's what you do for a living, we are, I guess, very libertarian. But let me explain what that means as well. Libertarian means that you are a free individual and you have the right to do whatever you want, provided you do not infringe upon the equal rights of others. Now, do we understand that? Now, don't get hung up on, well, Libertarian Party this and Republican Party that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about true liberation of the individual, especially from government. Right? Just for example, we heard on the radio, television the other day, one of our illustrious representatives in Washington said that children do not belong to their parents. They belong to the community. And there's a big rumpus about that. Now, first of all, I totally disagree with her, as you can imagine. The children do not belong to the parents. They belong to the community. But let's play with that a little bit. Let's assume that it's either one or the other. They belong to the community or the parents. Let's just assume that for a second. Now, if a child does something wrong, who do we go to? Who does the school go to? When a child is reprimanded in school and needs to be punished for whatever reason, who do they call? Do they call the parents or do they call the community? You see, once we go down that road, we go to never, never thinking land. We have children who are existing but are products of the state, but no one's responsible for that child. Now we say, well, the parents are responsible for those children, but they don't belong. The parents don't own the children. They really are part of the community. Let me argue both sides. You see, children are not owned by anyone. No one is born in this world with a stamp on their head saying property of. Everyone that is born in this world is absolutely free. See, the answer to that dilemma is the fact that children don't belong to anyone. They may belong to a family, but no one owns a child. There's a family who is responsible for the child. Society is not responsible for the child, but the parents are. But that child is born absolutely free. Now, if we can get this concept in our minds that you are absolutely free, and natural law says you're absolutely free, just by virtue of the fact that you were born on dirt within some geographic political boundaries doesn't make you any different than anyone else. As you see, if you believe that concept and you truly understand it, we can resolve a lot of the problems that we hear every single day on the radio and on television, and that we're mesmerized with every single day. You know, I saw a documentary the other day. It was very interesting. I'm a car buff. I just love hot rods and muscle cars, especially muscle cars. I'm from the old muscle car era back in the 1950s and 1960s. I was watching this program, and after the program finished, there was another program showing how floor mats and truck bed liners were made. I know it sounds kind of boring, doesn't it? Floor mats and truck liners. We say, well, what can be interesting about that? Well, they toured through this particular factory, and this factory was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It was so clean. Surgical rooms should look this clean. I've never seen anything like this. They had machines. Each one must have cost hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. They had one machine that just took the molded plastic or whatever, the composite, and molded it into the floor mat. It utilized millions of pounds of pressure. They walked this entire large place. Beautiful machineries, and I tell you, you could have eaten off the floors. The reason why I'm telling you that is that although it had high-tech machines, it did employ very, very few people. Now, this one factory supplies floor mats and bed liners to companies around the world. One factory. Incredibly highly productive. You see, we are one of the most productive countries in the world. People scream that we should take the jobs back from China, from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Indonesia, and bring them back. That is very, very ill-spoken. We don't want those jobs. Because, see, the jobs we have here are those people who are designing and actually manufacturing machines that, in fact, go to factories that manufacture the bed liners and the floor mats. Now, the difference is this. We have an unemployment problem in the United States. We all recognize that. Our unemployment rate is much, much too high. In fact, many economists feel that it's closer to 20% if you can include those people who have given up looking for jobs, those people who are underemployed, they're working at Walmart rather than being an engineer, and those people working for lesser money than they have before, it's probably well over 20%. Now, that's depressionary type of employment records. Now, we engage in mathematics that make it seem much better, but that's the reality of it. Now, here's my talking point on that. There are people... there are people who are unemployed. We have an unemployed situation that's considered sectional unemployment or structural unemployment. In other words, people who are highly skilled typically can find a job. People with lower skills have difficulty finding jobs. Why? Because those jobs are overseas. Now, the cry is to bring these jobs back here in America. But what would you be doing? You'd be sacrificing productivity. Now, do you want to have an unproductive America with people working at jobs that really go nowhere, mindless, repetitive jobs? I don't think so. You see, as America transformed to an electronically controlled type of, not controlled, but driven manufacturing, so the people had to change as well. People had to realize it was no longer any good to stand in front of a table and put two pieces together. Monotonous all day long. What they had to do is go back to school and learn new trades. In other words, they had an upgrade. Our manufacturing has upgraded tremendously. We are one of the most, if not the most productive countries in the world. Unfortunately, when we became productive, we sacrificed many people who had monotonous, low-level jobs that could be accomplished a lot more efficiently, a lot more quickly, and a lot cheaper overseas. Now, before you start screaming about that, remember when you go to the store and you have a pair of pliers that you paid $2.99 for, or whatever it is, any trinket, anything. If it was made here, you'd be paying $5.99. I'll give you an example. This is several years ago. I had a laser printer. I hated it because they always ran out of ink, and the ink cost me a fortune. I was in Home Depot, and they had a Samsung black and white laser printer on sale. No, it wasn't even on sale. It was just a regular price. I think it was $89 or $99. I couldn't believe it because I always thought laser printers, this is several years ago, were in the hundreds. Well, I bought it. It's been working ever since. Never had a lick of problem with it. If that laser printer had been manufactured here, it would have been $200 or $300. I would not have bought it. You see my point? You see, we upgrade our society, but when we upgrade the society, the manufacturing, we have to upgrade ourselves. And that we've done a very poor job of doing. Now, one reason we've done that is because the government owns our school system. By the way, folks, everything is connected. Absolutely everything is connected. And this is a real problem in that we have everything interconnected with the government controlling usually most aspects of what we do today. And as a result, nothing can be done. Am I pessimistic? You bet I'm pessimistic. But I'd like to hear your view. Call 888-773-4496, 888-773-4496, and you'll be on the air. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Now, this is a Maiden broadcast here at the Agora Coffee Shop at the Fontana Shopping Center. That's 51st and Memorial. It's a great place, eclectic. It's big, well lit. I'm here, having coffee. The coffee here is great. They have different types of exotic coffees. It's inexpensive. You'll love this place. It's a great place to get away. You want to get away and have places with big windows, little eclectic, nice place to sit down, meet other people. It's the Agora Coffeehouse at Fontana Shopping Center, 51st and Memorial. All right, let me see you come over here. You come over here right now and you sit down next to me. I guarantee you I will buy you a cup of coffee. I'd like to weigh in also on on a little ad that I saw the other day. It was really interesting. I don't know what it was for because as soon as I heard it, I got up and I had to write it down just to make certain I did not forget because I have a tendency to say, geez, that's neat. That'll be a good topic for my radio program. 5 minutes later, I have no idea what it was. There was a kid sitting down with a book. And this is what the kid said. And I was really surprised this was on television. He said, he had a book in his hand. He said, reading makes me think for myself. Let me repeat that. Reading makes me think for myself. What do we do today? Do we read or do we watch television? Which do we do more of? Now, we may read a magazine that we have interest in. We may read the newspaper, but I mean really reading, sitting down, reading a book, reading a white paper on an article. I mean, in depth. This is what I'm forced to do because I have a radio program. I'm constantly reading white papers. I don't have much opportunity to read books because I'm always reading white books. I like the white paper of the book, if you will. But I don't have time to read the entire book. I try to squeeze one in from time to time, but I'm reading white papers constantly. Opinions from people of authority, who know what they're talking about. And it's not a short article like, boy, this sucks, man, you know. They go through the entire logic of what they're doing and what they're saying, the hypothesis. And I'll tell you, I have to agree. Most of what I read, I do agree with. And that's how I've learned what I learned today. This is why I have a radio program today. Because I realized after reading, I started to really think for myself. And when I started thinking for myself, I finally realized that what was being fed to me on television was all mistaken. It's skewed. It has an agenda. If the agenda is not to solve a problem or to walk through the logic of a particular problem or a scenario, but to sell you something or to make you think a certain way. Listen to the news. All you get is gibberish. Think of this for a second. We have 3 or 4 major news stations, if you want to consider CNN a major one. You know, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and then CNN. And isn't it strange that there are thousands and thousands of occurrences going on every single day? And what do we hear? Each one of them have the same story. Now, the atrocity is that these people can't be that stupid. They say things that are absolutely stupid and not true. At one time, our news people used to be the eyes and ears for the public. They kept in check our politicians. If they detected our politicians doing something out of line, they reported it. Because, see, the news broadcasts were totally independent. We could rely on them, and the politicians feared them. Today, they don't fear them. They own them. They tell them what to say. And we watch television, stupid programs, I mean really non-thinking programs. Listen to the news, and then what? That's it. And we do this every single day. One thing that watching television doesn't do, it does not make you think for yourself. Like that kid said on that ad, reading makes me think for myself. I can't tell you how many times I ask people if they've done something or they were going to do something or I needed them to do something. They say, oh, you know, I just haven't had the time. And the question I would love to ask afterwards, which I withhold myself from doing, is, how many hours of TV did you watch last week? I will bet you that in many cases, that person who had to do something watched over 40 hours of television in that week, when the thing that they had to do would have taken less than an hour. We've become a very lazy nation, and as a result, we have not learned to think. We have put our thinking mechanism away. We make other people do the thinking for us. We watch television and wait for the pronouncement. And this is what happens. Whenever there is a news story, it's not necessarily national news, but they make it national news. It could be a local occurrence, they make national. We all wait for the president to give his opinion about it. Now, I object to that. First of all, the president has nothing to do with that. But what has happened is that they are conditioning us to say, please, you are incapable of thinking. If you want to know whether or not this is right or wrong or how you should feel around this subject, about this subject, you must wait for our grand high exalted Mr. Gruler to pronounce it. It reminds me of people of the Catholic Church who wait for the Pope to render a decision on a particular situation. I mean, but that's a faith. I mean, he's the one that makes the rules and everyone else believes. Very simple. And I can understand that. But as far as government concerned, if we consider ourselves free people, why are we waiting for the opinion of one person who is no brighter than anybody else in this room? Or brighter than anybody else, anyone that I'm speaking to right now? Why are we waiting for that person? I really want you to think about that. And what really, really disturbs me is the fact that what we do is that we allow our politicians to get away with that. And we have stopped thinking, we've stopped reading, but one thing we do very well, we start repeating exactly what's fed to us. And we obey. And with that, our freedom erodes to nothing. And folks, we have about a few more seconds to go. I want to thank you very much for listening to this abbreviated broadcast. This is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. We certainly appreciate if you have been listening in. This was our Maiden broadcast at the Agora Coffeehouse, located at 51st and Memorial in the Fontana Shopping Center. We apologize sincerely for all of the mechanical doings that we went through. Of course, no one called in, unfortunately. We'd love to have you. But if you are listening to this program and you're in the area, come to the Agora Coffeehouse in the Fontana Shopping Center, 51st and Memorial. And sit down with me, ask a question, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee. With that, stay well, stay tuned.